our Bible class at the congregation near Tamid. We're studying the book of Judges and the stories of Samson. I'm Rabbi Tzvi Graetz. For those of you on YouTube listening to this class. And I'm going to start by sharing the screen. Going here and doing share. Okay, oh, look at that. And I'm just going to remind everyone that last week we did chapter 14. Samson is a growing young man, and he meets this Philistine woman. She's very pretty. We're going to find out. He has something with pretty women, and especially non-Jewish ones. He likes to mingle with them. Yeah, right. Like Sandra said, Shik said. And however, during the wedding, he has an opportunity to kind of like hit the Philistines in not the most fair way, as we saw, with all the riddles that were going on, riddles that only he knew the answer for, and when they did not, and when they tricked him by getting the answer from his newlywed wife, he got upset, and then now we see kind of he has like temper issues. He went and killed 30 Philistines in Ashkelon, took their garments, and gave them to his groom men from the wedding. And now the woman is left with her parents at home, the woman he married, and Samson's kind of like out of picture. So her father gives her to a different man, a Philistine man, which he's not supposed to do. He just gave your daughter as wife to Samson, and now you're giving her to another man. That's not permissible to do. So he's tricked again in that sense. The Philistines don't like the Israelites, and they are also ruling them. They have more power over the Israelites, so they could also do that. You could get away with something like that easily. And now we come to, with that introduction, we come to chapter 15. Sometime later, in the season of the wheat harvest, so this would probably be around after Passover, like around the holiday of Shavuot, Samson in the summer, Samson came to visit his wife, bringing a kid as a gift. Okay, so now he's coming back to like calm down everyone. He's bringing a gift. He's like, I want my wife back. He said, let me go into the chamber to my wife. But her father would not let him go in. I was sure, said her father, that you had taken a dislike to her, so I gave her to your wedding companion. But her younger sister is more beautiful than she. Let her become your wife instead. Okay, so the father is dealing around with his daughters. Okay, he sold, his first daughter to Samson for a nice, dowry, and that didn't work. So he made money off her, selling her to a local Philistine who paid a lot of money for her, I guess. And now the man is like backing up on the first deal and said, but I have something else. This is like the Middle East, right? This is like, I have something else to sell to you. And that's my youngest daughter. Okay, so he's not behaving in a very moral way, but it does, and it also kind of like echoes the story of Rachel and Leah. Yeah. in the book of Genesis, right?
With Laban.
Yeah, with Laban, right? Was also kind of like a deceitful person.
I'm a little confused though. Usually it's the father of the woman who brings the money, not the husband's side here. So how does he benefit? It's really not clear to me.
No, you still have to bring the you still have to. I don't know. I think in ancient times.
It's usually a dowry that the father of the bride brings.
No, but also. A good question.
The bride's family pays the dowry. And then it goes to the husband's family.
Yeah, but that's why I don't understand
was.
what her father is gaining out of all this machination.
Well, he is gaining a strong married to a strong person who can provide and take care of them. So that's I guess that's kind of like the biggest benefit because it's like long-term security.
Well, he really doesn't want to anger Samson too much because Samson is
Right.
a violent man. I mean,
He's seen what Samson is up to, right? Too much. That's a good point. Ima, did you want to add something?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you would have a better understanding of why he would offer the younger sister. Thereupon Samson declared, now the Philistines can have no claim against me for the harm I shall do them. Okay, so he was now even more upset because he can't have the wife that he wanted. He's not interested in the younger daughter. He's interested in you know in the marriage that he already got. He doesn't want to be played around with. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes. He took torches and turning the fox's tail to tail, he placed a torch between each pair of tails. He lit the torches and turned the foxes loose among the standing grain of the Philistines, setting fire to stacked grain, standing grain, vineyards, and olive trees. Tremendous destruction and hurting the economy of the Philistines at the time. Okay. Is this justifiable? It doesn't really seem justifiable. Okay. At least not, if we try to balance things, right? Like you didn't get your wife. Okay. That's wrong. But this is, like, it's not even parallel in many ways. And again, it shows his anger and his really impulsive personality. However, it is fulfilling the goal of weakening the Philistines, okay, and hurting the Philistines who are right now ruling over the Israelites. So it's kind of like fulfilling Samson's hidden role as savior of the people of Israel in that way. So it's like fulfilling God's plan in a way, or maybe not. It's not really clear. And maybe this is not exactly the way God wanted it to happen. Maybe Samson's got it wrong. Maybe Samson knows that he's supposed to kind of somehow save the people of Israel, and he's trying to do it in the wrong ways. In a hurtful, in a vengeful, in a way that's not the right way to do it. The Philistines asked, who did this? And they were told it was Samson, the son-in-law of the Timonite, who took Samson's wife and gave her to his wedding companion. Thereupon the Philistines came up and put her and her father to the fire. So this is like now the Philistines hurt the Philistine man from Timnah and burn him and his household in a vengeful way as well. Okay, so everyone's kind of like suffering in this crazy story. Samson said to them, "If that is how you act, I will not rest until I have taken revenge of you." So now starts another cycle of revenge from Samson's end. He gave them a sound and thorough thrashing. Then he went down and stayed in the cave of the rock of Etam. The Philistines came up, pitched camp in Judah, and spread out over Lehi. Lehi is the jaw. Lehi in Hebrew is jaw.
So,
So it's a name of a place.
oh,
Okay, like the jaw. Okay.
okay.
Those on Judah's side asked, "Why have you come up against us?" So the people of Judah are like, "What do you want from us?" They're talking to the Philistines. They answers, "We have come to take Samson prisoner and to do to him as he did to us." Okay, so we're not after you. Just give us that Samson of yours who's creating a lot of problems to us. Thereupon, 3,000 Judites went down to the cave of the rock of Etam, and they said to Samson, "You knew that the Philistines rule over us. Why have you done this to us?" Okay, he replied, "As they did to me, so did I do to them." "We have come down," they told him, "to take you prisoner and to hand you over to the Philistines. But swear to me," said Samson to them, "that you yourselves will not attack me." "We won't," they replied. "We will only take you prisoner and hand you over to them. We will not slay you." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. So what happens now is very interesting, okay, because the people of Judah are afraid to be hurt by the Philistines. So they say to the Philistines, "What do you want?" They say, "Give us Samson." They go to Samson and they say, "Listen, Samson, we're really sorry. We have to hand you over to the Philistines, or else they're going to hurt us." Samson says, "Okay, you could tie me up, but you got to promise me you're not going to hurt me." Okay. Now Samson has a lot of power. He already knows it. So he doesn't want to hurt the Judites, the people, his people, his own people. He's going to hurt the Philistines. We can already understand that. But he wants to make sure that the people of Judah are not hurt. So they go down to the cave, they tie him up with these ropes. And when he reached Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. Thereupon the Spirit of God gripped him, and the ropes on his arms became like flax that catches fire. The bonds melted off his hands. He came upon a fresh jawbone, lechi, okay, of a donkey, and he picked it up, and with it he killed 1,000 men. Okay, so he was like with a jawbone of a donkey. He killed 1,000 of them without any weapons. That's how strong he was. Then Samson said, "With the jaw of an ass, mass upon mass, with the jaw of an ass, I have slayed 1,000 men." As he finished speaking, he threw the jawbone away. Hence, that place was called Ramat Lehi. Okay, so the reason that place was called Lehi, like jaw, is because of the jawbone. He was very thirsty and called, "You yourself have granted this great victory through your servant. And must I now die of thirst?" and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised, opened the hollow that is at Lehi, and the water gushed out of it. He drank, regained his strength, and revived. That is why it is called to this day Ein HaKoreh of Lehi, the one who called God. He led Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. So we're not done with Samson. But what we see right now is this interesting phenomena where he goes time and time again and hits the Philistines. He gets back at them, and he also kind of like does it in a poetic way. We saw that even last time with the lion and the honey, that he had like a little rhyme that he had back then. So that's kind of when the Spirit of God rests upon him, he also prophesies or something of that sort. Okay, so we get to know him a little bit more, and let's look at a few things that are very interesting in terms of chapter 15. First of all, is Samson's relationship with non-Jewish women on the path to salvation, pause in Philistia. Samson's parents believe it is better for him to marry a Hebrew woman rather than a foreign one, but they do not know what you and I know. In the consciousness of the average Hebrew reader, insofar as such a reader exists, the figure of the Nazarite, that's Samson, is imagined according to the Christian model of the concept, as described in classical literature, living in a monastery, engaging in holy matters, and abstaining from life's pleasure, especially physical pleasures. However, according to the Torah, a Nazarite is someone who has vowed for a given period not to cut or shave their hair, and is barred from drinking the fruit of the wine and from approaching the dead. That's the only thing in Judaism when you're a Nazarite, as opposed to the monks in Christianity that abstain from any life pleasures, including sexual relationships. Yet Samson was destined for Nazariteship from his mother's womb, is a Nazarite entirely of the flesh. He is a man of large physical stature with passions to match. Like generations of Israeli men, Samson is drawn to foreign women and wants to marry a Philistine woman, despite the reservations of his father and mother, who believes the daughters of Israel should come first. Samson's parents do not know one of the several instances in this chapter where the reader learns things behind the backs of various characters. That Samson has divine approval to pursue an uncircumcised woman in order to create a pretext to fight the Philistines who are oppressing Israel under the service of that very same God. That uncircumcised mean not that the women of Israel are circumcised, but someone who's like a Gentile. On his way to his wife from Tzorah to Timnah, and we read this in previous chapters, Samson encounters a lion and kills it with his bare hands. The next time he travels the same route, he discovers that bees have set up a temporary hive in his carcass and produce honey. He gathers it in his hands and brings it to his parents, dripping and sticky, snacking along the way. The narrator wanted to make the character look ridiculous in the eyes of his readers. This is the moment. Samson does not tell his parents about the lion, nor about the place where he found the honey. He is the only one, aside from the reader and God, who knows the answer to the riddle he possesses to the 30 Philistines who join him at his wedding feast. This is not a fair game, so Samson should not resent the fact that the other side plays dirty too. Philistine intelligence managed to locate one of Samson's weaknesses. Like many men, when his desire takes over, he loses his head. Philistine intelligence uses threats to force Samson's wife to extract the answer from him. She nags him, likely withholding a technique Delilah will also use soon, that's in the next chapter, presumably on the orders of her intelligence handlers, and he spills the information. Now he must provide the Philistines with 30 changes of garments and linens, which he plunders from 30 random Philistines he kills. This is, of course, the end of his first marriage, to be continued. This is by Michael Engelsaltz. Okay, so that's like and kind of like understanding of Samson's relationship with women, his weak point, and this is also one of the problems with a lone person leading the battle on his own. He has his weaknesses. He has all his issues. It's not like a whole nation going to battle and fighting. If it's just one man, and you find his weakness, it's easier to deal with him. Maybe that's part of the problem with Samson. He's not a team player, right? He's not trying to congregate all the people of Israel together to fight the Philistines. He's doing it on his own.
It's interesting.
Why would that happen?
It's interesting that there is no Israelite to advise him like you will get sometimes in the later prophets will come out to kind of steer him, but apparently there isn't anybody. He's just on his own.
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's no person next to him, right? Like when Deborah was there, a judge, and Barak had Deborah kind of like helping him out and leading him, and others had. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's part of like the era. Everyone's on their own. Everyone works on their own, and everyone's like a lone wolf in that sense until they're gone. And Samson's going to be gone because he's an individual. Yeah.
The fact that these Philistines are in power over the Israelites seems to say that the Israelites have angered God and they're being punished for that. But to assuage that punishment, Samson comes along.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very good point you're making, Jerry, because this is like kind of like an in-between era. On the one hand, the Philistines have more power, but the Israelites are gaining some power by the actions of Samson, who's an individual. So they're gaining some power and hopefully some benefits. But it's not like they're defeating all of the Philistines like it was in the past. So it's like an in-between era. And it also marks, we're kind of like getting towards the end of the book of Judges, or just like the beginning of the end. And if we started off really on a good point where the Israelites had a lot of power, every chapter we see how it's declining, how the people of Israel repeat doing the bad behavior in the eyes of God. God punishes them again and again, and up to the point where it kind of like it doesn't really matter. Even if Samson's winning a few battles here and there, it doesn't look good for the Israelites at the end. So, and this is setting the stage for later on. We need a king. We need a leader that will lead the people of Israel. That's the whole book of Judges. If you remember, I said that a few times, is setting the grounds for we need a king. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
I did.
Oh, yes.
Michael Hartlesates, whatever his name is, the journalist, did he write everything for the book of Judges or just this chapter?
You write from time to time.
Well, as I was listening to Samson takes on the Philistines, it sounded like a comic book. It really did. It's like Superman comes, God touches him, his ropes melt and fire comes, or 3,000 foxes. I mean, it felt to me like a comic book.
Well, do you know who wrote Superman? was a Jewish writer
Copied it out of the Bible.
who knew about Samson. That was like his bar mitzvah, project or something like that. And he just called him Superman, S, that big S, that's Samson, it's after. And one of the scenes is really the chords that Superman goes, right? And just like Samson.
Remember that,
So,
and that's
it's all
to me, he did a good job.
Samson is the inspiration for Superman. This is just real. Yeah, it's in the 1920s. Actually, our bar
Jerry
mitzvah boy
Siegel
2
and
weeks ago talked about it.
Joe Schuster.
Marvel
Yeah.
Comics.
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't a Marvel comic for that.
Superman added flying to his
Well, he had a cape.
Yeah, but Samson didn't need to fly anywhere. He was in Israel. It's a small country. Yeah. Go ahead, Ima. You wanted to also say?
If you remember when I taught the class at the very beginning, last in March, whenever I was in November, I pointed out, you just made that point, but in a different way, that everything is downhill. But it's also the treatment of women, if you notice here. I mean, women, we haven't gotten to Delilah, that's next week. But the treatment of women here is just negotiable and trading and pawning back and forth from the high at the very beginning when Achsa demands her rights from her father, and then Deborah, and even Samson's mother, who has a lot of agency as well. But once Samson is born, now the treatment of women is really going to go downhill, getting to the very end, which is going to be really awful. So you have that's one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing is, the Superman thing is great, but it's also, there's grotesque here. It's comedy in a sense, but grotesque comedy. It's like it's a horror story almost to a certain degree. It's horrific, and what's happening and the destruction that's going on, and it's true, he's our hero, right? He's our hero. But on the other hand, he's doing some terrible things in the name of, the way he treats people and makes fun of them and whatever. So he may be, he's not behaving in, a Nazarite fashion. I mean, he's really behaving almost as an anti-Nazarite, except for not cutting his hair,
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. Now, here's a very famous painting by Rembrandt from 1635 in Berlin today, of Samson threatening his father-in-law. Okay, you see Samson here is a nice European thug, okay, threatening the father. Their father actually looks Jewish, right? Like someone who would deceit, right? He's like playing stuff with him, so that it's kind of like reverse roles. But the interesting part is that this is a part of a series that Rembrandt made on of paintings on Samson's story. Okay. And it's called Samson Confronts His Brother-in-Law. Rembrandt, his father-in-law. Rembrandt, Baroque painters, lovers of drama, depicted several of these stories. Rembrandt also answered the challenge, portraying scenes from Samson's life in 3 of his works. 2 of them are remarkably dramatic. One depicts the sharing of his locks by Delilah. We'll read about that next week. And the second, the gouging out of Samson's eyes. You remember that's the end of the story. We'll read next week. Or actually, not next week. Next week I'm in Israel. In the third painting, Rembrandt chose to depict a less central scene from Samson's life. Samson stands at the center of the painting, identified by the locks of hair falling onto his shoulders. Okay. You see that? Over his solid physique, he wears a Dutch coat. and upon his shoulder an impressive purple cloak. His gaze is focused and stern, and he knocks assertively on the window of his wife's house. Behind Samson, the door of the house is clearly visible with the knocker at its center. The door is locked to him, so Samson attempts to communicate through the window. Okay, we see all of that, right? Here's the lock on the door. Okay, so it's interesting also to see Europe in the 17th century and how it looked. The artwork depicts the first verses of chapter 15 that we read today. And it came to pass after a while in the time of wheat harvest that Samson visited his wife with a kid, and he said, I will go into my wife into the chamber, but her father would not suffer him to go in. And her father said, I verily thought that thou hadst utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. And Samson said unto them, this time I be blameless in regard of the Philistine, when I do them a displeasure. Rembrandt presents the verses as if no backstory exists. Samson is depicted as a violent man, and the sword hanging at his waist emphasizes his dangerous nature. His wife's father is a clearly elderly and harmless man, right? In this painting, right? Seems like this old nice guy. He appears as though he has just been awoken from his sleep, emerging from the window with a surprised look. In the darkness behind the figure of Samson, a black youth is depicted, likely Samson's servant, carrying Samson's gift in his hand, a young goat, kid. Okay, you see that? You see the kid here in the back on the left? See this figure
Oh,
here?
I didn't see that.
Now you see it?
Uh-huh.
Really subdued.
Yeah. So
You have to go to
the woman's
Amsterdam to see that.
the woman's father is portrayed as
No, the dark.
the dark figure may symbolize Samson's impulsive, instinctual nature. Who is the bad guy and who is the good guy in the story? In the biblical account, Samson is betrayed by his wife and her family. The woman's father is portrayed as a particularly deceitful figure. He gives Samson's wife to the companion who had betrayed him, but Samson's wife was given to his companion who he had used as his friend. And he is not ashamed to blame Samson for this despicable act. In the painting, however, he is described as a kind old man. Can we infer that Rembrandt sided with the father? If so, why did he choose to depict the figure of Samson in a way that closely resembles his own self-portrait? Rembrandt was known to be a contentious man, openly or covertly identify with Samson's behavior, or perhaps Rembrandt wanted to hint to us that we should not be hasty to judge people, even the violent among them. This is by El Mali, who's an art teacher in Israel. So very interesting to see how Rembrandt puts himself in the story, according to her interpretation. He has a whole book, by the way, about paintings in the Bible and interpreting them. Very interesting book. I think she has like two volumes on it. And
Isn't it more likely that that in Rembrandt's time anti-Semitism was rampant and he just didn't want to anger or maybe he just wanted to please the powers that be?
yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you in that sense. And maybe kind of like, I think you're right, because there's still also like light on Samson, and he looks like the positive person here.
Rembrandt also did other things. When I was in, I don't know if it was St. Petersburg or whatever, we were in the Hermitage Museum, and our guide said these were all Rembrandt paintings. And she said,
How does
this
it?
is about your religious myths. And they were Christian. So I don't know if it was Old
Uh-huh.
Testament or New Testament but
Interesting, but how did they
Christian
get
myths
to
were not in the Old Testament, I don't think.
The Tsars bought them.
Oh,
So
maybe.
Rembrandt was a busy guy.
Oh, yeah, he's a very busy guy. But here, that's his self-portrait, which is also interesting. He's kind of like says, I'm misunderstood. I look maybe like a angry person, but I'm more soft inside or something of that sort, which is interesting. Yeah,
One thing I keep wondering about as far as Samson is concerned, is Samson's story and revenge against the Philistines simply against that group of Philistines, or do we assume that all of Philistino was oppressing Judah?
yeah, all
and-
Philistines were oppressing Israel at the time. Because they had the power over them, yeah, because God let them do that. So yeah, that would be the assumption. Here we have a painting by James Tissot from the end of the 19th century. Here are poor foxes who are about to be entered on fire into the field. So it's also, it's not very friendly to the animals, this chapter. As he's abusing them as well, and which you're not supposed to do in the Bible either. Even at the times of the Bible, it was not something you would do. Like on the Sabbath, right? We are obligated to let our cows and sheep rest as well, or ox. They're not supposed to work. So the Torah is considerate of them as well. So why would he do that to the foxes? Is not really a nice thing. But again, it shows his impulsivity and always thinking through everything. Here is
The foxes also are a little bit in their nature like Samson.
oh, interesting. Like a little bit deceitful and go around to hit people and to very interesting.
You have that expression, sly as a fox. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if it's just in English or whether.
That's very interesting. That's very nice, Naomi. I'll add that to the commentary. And the cubicle of Samson, here he is holding the jaw of the donkey, hitting getting back at all the Philistines. This is very interesting. This is 4th century art in Italy, in the catacombs. Okay, in the Vatican, I think. They discovered this. So it's like how far back they illustrating. It's like you were mentioning the comics, Superman comics from our modern era. Here are the comics of the 4th century of Italy. Maybe it was done even before that. People would go and look at it. Right? There was no print housing. You'd have to go to these places. Everyone, I know, maybe you'd have to buy a ticket.
Well, it's
Stand in
obviously,
line to look at these. And people would look at that, and that would kind of like enrich them, and they would like be thinking, look at him at his hand, he's holding, it's like a glove or something of that sort. Not really clear. Right?
The history of art and early, particularly religious paintings, was flat. It did not become three-dimensional
Right.
until it evolved much later.
1600s.
Yeah, you can see it here. It's completely a flat
Right.
expression.
That's true. But he kind of, I think they want to have him resemble as kind of like a savior or a messiah or some kind of.
Well, you got the people on the ground, is that assuming that?
That these are the
slave them?
Philistines, yeah, that he's slain. Here is Samson quenching his thirst. Do you remember he was very thirsty after this?
Okay.
So he has all the Philistines, the dead Philistines that he killed. He's a little bit thirsty. He worked very hard that morning, and he's asking God for some water. And according to this, he took it with the same jawbone of the donkey and he filled it up with water and he's like drinking. Interesting interpretation, right? And look at the perfect body that he has, very masculine, and
Where's his mustache?
he's a swimmer. He's
He's a
shaved, his body's completely shaved.
Well,
Well,
his hair is not flowing in this depiction.
yeah, exactly.
That's
Also,
true.
I wouldn't say that he was excessively well built. I mean, he's well proportioned,
Got a six
but
pack,
it's,
come on.
Yeah,
that's not, doesn't make it. He doesn't have the shoulders of a broad-shouldered
It
person.
didn't work out in those
Yeah.
days.
but he's a young man, give him a
Yeah.
break. He's still building
in good
himself
shape.
out. Yeah. That's funny. 18th century, we have here again Samson quenching his thirst.
Now he's muscular.
Okay, standing over all
Exactly.
the bodies of the Philistines. Maybe here they said, "Oh, this time we'll get it right." They made him much more masculine, and you could just imagine Europeans going through the churches or wherever this was and looking, or maybe at the homes of very rich people when they would have parties and everything. There was like, "Oh, look at my new collection of Samson paintings," and you kind of like show it to people.
And his mustache is back.
Yeah,
That was a
So is his
photo on
beard.
the wall, probably.
Yeah, that was exactly.
I was in
And
the
he's got-
catacombs
Really?
in Palermo. The
Uh-huh.
catacombs were quite interesting in
And they
Palermo.
had paintings?
I didn't have to buy a ticket. They
Oh,
were dressed up in really the clothes they died in. There were children, dead children there, skeletons.
Oh,
It's very
interesting.
bizarre.
well, they have Dante also. They have a lot of stuff like that. Samson slays 1,000 men. Again, Tissot, the one who's in the Jewish Museum in New York. And look at him, this time as a redhead, maybe referring to King David, who was a redhead later on. And on his own, King David was also at the beginning was an individualist. He won the war against Goliath on his own. He took down a lion on his own, just like Samson. So he started off as a loner, imitating Samson, but then he became a leader of all the people. He became a team player. That's a kind of like the opposite of Samson and his leadership. Trent Park College, I don't remember where, I think that's in England. Lead sculpture of Samson and Philistine. So here Samson is holding the jawbone and is about to kill this Philistine. Okay, just not a civil war. A big question that we read: why does Samson allow the men of Judah to hand him over to the enemy? After all, he could have resisted and struck them down, just as he later did to 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. So he understands he could have killed the Israelites that came to arrest him. He was like, "The hell with you." But no, he made the distinction between the Israelites and the Philistines. The logic behind Samson's actions, serving as a strategic ploy that leaves the enemy unable to hold the people of Israel responsible for his deeds, reaches its peak in chapter 15. This occurs when the men of Judah hand him over to the Philistines, bound with ropes. Consequently, it becomes clearly evident to the Philistines, so to speak, that Samson is operating strictly on his own initiative. Out of fear regarding the Philistines' response to Samson's terrorism, which was bound to harm them, the men of Judah approached Samson to surrender him to the Philistines. As described, then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock of Etam and said to Samson, "Do you not know that the Philistines rule over us? What then is this that you have done to us?" So under the described circumstances, the argument made by the men of Judah to Samson appears understandable, rational, and fully justified in all aspects. Samson's response to them seems to fit his simplistic conduct. As they did to me, so I have done to them. So the Israelites, the people of Judah come to him and he's like, have you not read the news in the last few years? We are ruled by the Philistines. This is the reality. Why are you getting up and creating chaos? And Samson's like, well, they did this to me. I'm going to get back at them. It's like he's not connected to reality in that sense. And he was like, it's payback time. Is this God's plan or not? That is not clear. Or is it more like trying to show us the chaotic times that the judges were going through to set the stage for the need for a king that will put order in this world? Yet it is precisely at this convergence point that Samson's full moral responsibility stands out, as he is willingly and constantly prepared to allow them to hand them over to the Philistines. He certainly could have resisted them, just as he did immediately afterwards to the Philistines by striking down 1,000 of their men with the jawbone of a donkey. However, unlike his predecessors, Avimelech and Yiftach, Samson was careful not to harm his brothers. Just not a civil war. This is the echoing message from his heroic conduct towards his brethren, the men of Judah. The text expresses this logic as a mutual understanding requested by Samson. And Samson said to them, "Swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves." They said to him, "No, we will only bind you and give you into their hand. We will surely not kill you." The moral stature revealed in this supreme heroism, expressed through the immense restraint in his conduct towards his brothers, explains the enigmatically brief statement at the end of the chapter, "And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. And this is by Major General Gershon HaKohen, served until recently as a commander of the Northern Corps. So someone who's very high up in the army kind of like understand, and he comes also from a religious background. He's got kind of like saying like the Israeli society has to keep and stick to each other, even though people are fighting with them among each other. If we don't want to be weak in front of our enemies, we need to stick together, even with our disagreements, just like Samson stick together with the people of Judah and then hurt them in that sense. And they also promised him, "We will not hurt you, but we have to give you over," in that sense. Which is interesting because their faith was in the Philistines and not in Samson and his abilities in that sense, which kind of like parallels to the faith of Samson's father at the beginning of the story that we saw, that he wasn't like a great believer. So the men in this story, except for Samson, are not great believers, unlike Samson's mother and Samson himself. Yes.
Just in historical context, this was the time of the Bronze Age collapse and the invasion of the Sea Peoples from the central Mediterranean to the east.
Right.
And so the Sea Peoples had taken over, well, they tried to take over the Nile Delta, but were repulsed by Ramesses III. But the Sea Peoples really had more success along the western edge of Canaan. And so the Sea Peoples settled in the Canaanite lowlands. But they were still very interested in moving east. And at that time, there's a big continuous battles between the sea peoples who were inhabiting now so-called Philistia. And the Israel, the people of Judah, who were the dominant force at that time. So it was a very contentious kind of time between Philistia and the Western Canaanites, which were from Judah. So it was a continuous battle between the two. Only later would the Philistines be set back by the Hittites and the Egyptians, but never by the Canaanites, were they very successful.
Uh-huh,
But you would also
okay,
bring up the
that's interesting.
Babylonians.
Yeah,
That
And
kind of
that-
like